tuned in to Grown Folks Production. In the mix. With the commish, Nate.
Oh, there it goes. I'm sorry. I don't know why. That was delayed. We're still figuring out. I've had tech issues all day. I have no clue. There's just something about this brand new computer that a lot of programs don't like, even though this chipset has been out for 2 years. Anyway, enough complaints. Sorry for the delay. Welcome to Press Pass Live, your weekly OMFL podcast show. I'm your commission host, Nate, and with me this week is our buddy, the Atlanta Falcons, coach of the Deuce, Mr. Maniac. How you doing, bud?
Hey, man, excited to be here. Got a lot to talk about today. Playoff implications are abound, so I'm excited to be here with you, though.
Yeah, there is a ton to talk about. So let's do some recaps really fast and see if we can't get through those. Week number 11 is going to be mine. Baltimore Ravens 27, the Kansas City Chiefs 31. I'm assuming this was played, but I always end up talking about CPU games. Do you know if this one was played or not?
I'm not 100% sure myself on that one either, man.
I love the don't know. We're going to act like it was played and hope that it was played. 24 points scored in the third quarter, 177 rushing yards for the Chiefs, 126 rushing yards for the Ravens, 238 passing to 204. There was only 2 turnovers, one from each of the teams in this game. And what a classic back and forth. But the time of possession would end up just wearing down the Baltimore Ravens. 27 minutes and 42 seconds to 12 minutes and 18 seconds. Holy cow. What a time of possession for the Kansas City Chiefs. And Mr. Luca, after whipping my tail, is definitely on a roll. What's up, Meek? What's up, Kevin? Thanks for hanging out with us. Guys, make sure to hit that like button. It helps us out a ton. Jacksonville Jaguars and their new coach with a 23-17 victory over Colin and the New York Giants. The Tennessee Titans with a 42-28 victory over the Orlando Condors. Big flexing for Tennessee. I also am not sure if that game was played or not. Detroit with a 41-31 victory over the Dragons. Minnesota falls to the Rams 16-14. And then we wrap it up with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 38-27 victory over the Carolina Panthers. I do think, though, that was before all of the switching as we had brand new people flip-flop over on those teams. What's up, Cincy? I missed the old podcast. You guys got to get Big Hurt to at least do one podcast this summer. Let's take a look at week number 12. Mr. Maniac, take us away on this one.
All right, week 12. This was the change week, I believe, if I'm correct. But we had my first game. We were looking at Buccaneers versus Commanders. Big Hurt switching over to the Commanders. This game was a hard-fought game, actually. Both teams struggled on the rushing. The Bucs only had 48 yards rushing, which is kind of off for him because he's been dominating the rushing department this year. But the offensive passing yards, Ryder was just on fire. 341 yards. He had one touchdown, one interception. He also had his backup Tony Jacobs in the game as well for whatever reason. He may have gotten injured, but this game was definitely a back and forth game, and it ended up being a 21-17 victory for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But again, Big Hurt getting in with a team that kind of fits his style, and you can see what he can do when he's got a team rolling. All right, next up, we got the Browns and the Chargers. The Browns-Chargers, this game was a 35-28 game won by the San Diego Chargers. I want to say LA Chargers, but San Diego Chargers in Black Cat, and I'll say it right here, this but he dominated with 161 rushing yards. Let's see, Cam Akers is the bell cow there for the Chargers. 15 carries, 131 yards, 1 touchdown. He had a long of 67-yard run in that game. So, but that was a phenomenal game there for the Chargers, and Cleveland also there run by Lil Koch. Next up, we got the 49ers versus the Rams. This was a game with the new owner. Let's see.
Shiloh.
Shiloh Bet. Yeah, there we go. Shiloh. This game was definitely closer than what I was anticipating it to be, but sometimes, a new owner's coming in, they can have a new style, new play. He was not able to get any rushing yards, only 29 yards allowed by the 49ers defense on rushing, but he was able to get his quarterback going just a little bit. Goff had 3 touchdowns. He also did have 3 interceptions, 267 yards. Trey Lance, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Both quarterbacks were sacked once, but the 49ers were able to get the victory there. Big surprise, 33-22, but it was a little bit closer than what many would have probably anticipated. Next up is the Seahawks at the Dolphins. This game was really a nail biter. It went down to the end. We had the Seahawks pull out a victory, 29-28 over the Dolphins. Both teams were efficient on offense. The Dolphins had 3 touchdowns in the red zone, whereas the Seahawks only had 2. But both teams were very good on third down conversions. They were 75% or better on third down conversions in this game. So it was just back and forth. But the Seahawks did get the victory, 29-28 over the Dolphins. That was a good game. That would have been probably a classic there. Next up, we got last but not least, the Condors and the Lions. This game was the defenses forgot to get off the bus. Orlando scored 14 points in the fourth quarter, but it was not enough to get the victory as the Lions won in overtime, 41-35. Both offenses were just humming, 320 yards passing for the Lions, 312 passing for the Condors. Both had over 130 yards rushing. This game was just, if you like offenses, this is where it was to be. But the Condors actually controlled the time of possession, 26 minutes to 7 minutes.
I was
to the
freaking
Lions.
out about that as you were covering this game. Like 7:22, that can't be right.
Yeah. So I think the Lions must have really relied on the big plays to get them down the field, and the Condors, as we've noticed when we watch his games and stuff, he's always kind of controlling the clock, controlling the ball, going down the field. But the Detroit Lions didn't score in the fourth, but they held on and got the overtime win, 41-35. And that is your Week 12 games.
Some crazy close games, especially that Seattle game. I mean, they were almost the same passing yards, almost the same time of possession, almost the same everything. It was kind of crazy to see how that one went. Let's take a quick look at week number 13. Condors bounced back after some disappointing losses, 37-10 over the Tennessee Titans. The Cleveland Browns drop a really close game. This one was really fun to watch. I got to watch pieces of this. 38-27 against the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders are a machine this year. They're going to be a lot of fun to see what they can do in the postseason if they can get all the way there. The Chicago Dragons, they moved to Omaha and then back to Chicago. Couldn't get the Bears back. Have to be the Dragons. Well, they barely beat the Jacksonville Jaguars 31-28. This too was an offensive crazy game. 274 passing yards for the Dragons, 240 for the Jaguars, 156 rushing for the Jags to 179 passing. There was just crazy yards put up, 590 for the Jaguars, 462 for the Dragons, 26 first downs for the Dragons as they just seemed to dominate with this one, both in time of possession and picking up first downs. Great third down percentage. These teams went at it in a really, really fun game. Looking at a couple of these other games, New Orleans beats Philadelphia 38-28. That was a really fun game. I never get to play Twinkie anymore. That was a classic game. This one was crazy. The Carolina Panthers and their new owner, Bird, had to go face the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Mr. Kevin, and these guys went down to the wire. I want to say the Carolina Panthers were up like 28-7 or 21-0 or something. They were up big, and then here comes, it was 28-7 at one point. Tampa Bay scores again to make it 28-14. Third quarter, they score 17 unanswered and then combine for 29 points between both teams in the fourth quarter. Just a crazy good game between these two. It came down to a final drive in the fourth quarter, ended up being a turnover on downs for Carolina, and Tampa Bay continues to be the force to be reckoned with in the NFC South. Houston 31, New England Patriots 38. It's good to see Lost Sniper try to find some groove, try to find some momentum with his team. 2 turnovers for the New England Patriots defense. They led in offensive passing yards, rushing yards, total yards, first down. And I think I remember even time of possession. That's a really nice victory, scoring 11 points there in the fourth quarter to get a 38-31 win over the Houston Texans. And then we got to talk about this one because it's just watching all these games that we've talked about. Offense matters. Offensive sexy. They sell the tickets. And then Buffalo goes out and gets a 6-3 victory over the Seattle Seahawks. They didn't score the 3 until the fourth quarter. This game was 0-0 at halftime. Holy cow. Bill knows how to play some really good defense. Good to see you, JJ. Good to see you, Fleury. 70 rushing yards to only 28 rushing yards for the Seattle Seahawks. 203 passing yards to 181 of the Buffalo Bills. 258 total yards to 231 total yards. Combine those together, it's still less than some teams had for just their team for the entire offense. 2 turnovers apiece for each of these teams. The red zone percentage was 1 field goal apiece, and then the time of possession 18:51 to 21:09. And Buffalo comes out with a 3-point victory, and I think that's going to go a long way as we come to the end of the season. What a game. That would have been a ton of fun to call. We had 2 other really close games. Miami with a 31-28 victory over the New York Jets. That's a big-time victory for the Miami Dolphins. And then the Chargers, or SDG, I don't, why do you have to make it, just give us a C. We know what the G stands for. Give us the C, okay? 27-24 victory over Denver and his Bengals. Crazy good game between both of those guys. And I think some of these matchups in week 12 and 13 may show themselves as we get to the final couple of weeks here. And speaking of which, let's take a quick look at week number 14. A couple of games played, but why don't you go ahead and cover some of the games that you think could be a lot of fun to watch?
Yeah, so I picked up week 14. I had selected 3 games prior to this being played, and so far, one of those games that I'd selected was the Cardinals versus the Dolphins. My look at this game was initial thoughts was this was going to be a high-scoring, high-flying game that they would definitely hit the over, and they did. 426 yards for the Cardinals alone, 448 for the Dolphins.
OMFL News.
Over 800 plus yards combined for both teams. Red zones, one offensive touchdown for the Dolphins, so they did have a little bit of trouble in the red zone, but the Cardinals, man, 4 offensive red zone touchdowns in this game. The time of possession was nearly down the middle. The one stat that was in favor of the other team versus the other, the passing yards to Dolphins, 353 versus 248. But the rushing yards were in favor of the Cardinals, 153 to 95. But again, just an absolute spectacular performance. Austin Henry, the college Texas quarterback, Rookie for the Cardinals, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, going up against the mainstay from the import, Gordon Hitchens. He had 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, though, and was sacked twice in this game. But a phenomenal game, and one that would have been one to watch with the pick. The other games I got slated to watch in Week 14, none other than the 49ers versus the Bills. We just talked about the Bills in Week 13, only allowing the Seahawks 3 points for the entire game. And we've seen the Seahawks and the 49ers have some pretty good knockout, drag-out games within their division. So I'm looking for this one to possibly maybe be a low-scoring game. And that's hard to say with anybody playing D-Money, because D-Money just knows how to play the game. But Bill has shown this Madden that he is a top defensive coach, and he always seems to have like the less amount of yards given up per season in the OMFL. And I look for this game to be a really close game. I don't think the Bills will win this one, but I do think it's going to be a lot closer than a lot of people are going to anticipate in this game. Look for this game to be like a 16-10 game or something. The 49ers getting the win, though. And the other game that I had slated to watch it stays in the NFC West. And this is going to be Meek Boy versus Shiloh Bad. The Seahawks versus the Rams. The Rams have already kind of came out and had a couple of pretty good games early on, starting off with this squad that he picked up from Tim, who moved over to the Chicago Dragons. But the Rams and the Seahawks, this should be one to kind of see how Shiloh Buff kind of stacks up in the NFC West. He's already played the Cardinals really, really close. And then the 49ers, he played really close. So here he gets his chance at the Seahawks. So a lot of good games. We could talk about a lot more, but I could take so much time. We got the Lions Packers. That's going to be another division, a rivalry game. And then the Panthers and Broncos, I think, is going to be a good one. The Broncos with Jay Glaze, he's kind of found a little bit of a niche with his rookie quarterback. And then the Panthers, we got Bird over with his favorite team, and he's went toe-to-toe with the Bucks. So this would be another game to keep an eye on in Week 14.
I think there's going to be a ton of fun games as we come to an end here pretty quickly. I feel like we're going to be to the playoffs before we even know it. As I was trying to make some adjustments here, but we'll come back to it a little bit later. Let's get back over here and take a couple look at week number 15. So we'll cover 15 and 16. What's up, Shocks? What's up, Raj? I thought you meant a real nosebleed. I was like, let's call somebody. I can't help you through chat, but you meant your defense. Seahawks, Buccaneers, week 15. This is a much-watch game. I think Seattle, having some of these tough games late in the season, is challenging his team and will be able to overcome future challenges even better because of those speed bumps throughout the season. Kevin, yet, he's had some tough games and he's found a way to come out on top. He's also had a lot of easy, cheesy games. He's going to be challenged in this one by a very good team. Which quarterback comes on top? I tend to lean towards the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and their quarterback, and just everything that he's just got the receivers. He's got it all on offense. But Seattle's proven they can keep people shut down. We've seen it in Buffalo. Let's see what he can do in this one. Should be a ton of fun. Me and you always seem to have really fun games, Saints and Falcons. We're playing for high draft picks. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but should be a fun game. Rams and Panthers. You got Bird and Shiloh Bad. Is Bird going to make a late run here to the playoffs? Well, it's going to have to start with a big victory over the Rams. Bengals and Bills, man, two guys who played each other a ton. This is going to be a fun defensive game. I can't wait to watch these two teams just hammer each other. It's going to be one in the trenches. The Fat Boys are going to tell you who's going to win this game. Should be a lot of fun. Ravens, Cowboys. Man, D. Wayne has been going and coasting and winning and just showing his just toughness in the NFC. He feels like he could be one of the top 2 or 3 teams to beat. But Nipples, when he's here, when he's plugged in, when he's ready to roll, has shown that he can beat just about anyone. This is going to be a big game for both of these teams. I can't wait to see that one. Should be a ton of fun. Jets and 49ers, a rematch of OMFL Bowl number 106. Kobe feels like he's got some things figured out. He's got that offense figured out. He dropped a couple tough games here recently. This is going to be the matchup, though, that fires him up. D-Money, he might be like coasting back. He's going to be gone for Christmas holiday. He's even going to be here for the playoffs. It's going to be close. It's going to be tight. This might be a really fun matchup between these two teams. Two buddies get to match up between the Broncos and the Raiders. That'll just be a fun game because of who's actually going to be in that game. And then Lions and Commanders, Big Hurt is shown. Though the Commanders are not built for him, he knows how to win with them. Plays really great defense, one of the best defensive lines you're going to see in this league. He's got a good running game. He's playing pretty good with his quarterback. But Trey and the Vikings feel unstoppable on offense. They just do whatever it is they feel like doing on that side of the ball. It's going to be a matchup between two really good strengths. And then finally, a look at week number 16. Mr. Maniac, take it away.
All right, week number 16. I've actually only picked like 4 teams in this week, but this is the Battle of the Sunshine State. We got the Jags versus the Dolphins. We got Pepper over in Jacksonville now, and he's played a pretty good game a couple times already with them. So it looks like they kind of fit his style. And then of course, we all know the Dolphins. Massimo, he's got so much speed over there on the Dolphins. This game is going to be one to watch. I think it's going to be a high scoring game. Both guys, I think, have struggled a little bit on the defensive side of this Madden, especially this season. And so look for this game to be like a 34-28 game, something like that. But anyway, this is going to be a good one to watch. You want to tune in for that one. And then another one. This one could be actually a fun a game that you could say this could be a potential Super Bowl matchup or OMFL Bowl matchup, and it's likely not to be, but it could be, and it would be a fun one I think to watch. Would be the Buccaneers versus the Raiders. This one would be a cool OMFL Bowl game to see, and so this is kind of like a preview of what could possibly be. Both guys. They do have Madden generated quarterbacks. Kevin with the import from last Madden. Ryder, the dude he is unstoppable. He seems like he's just pinpoint accuracy, and then once you get everything locked down, he's got enough speed and wiggle. He gets out of the pocket and he gets a first down rushing the ball. So it's just pick your poison with Ryder, and he's such a tough out. But the Jay Bowles and the Las Vegas Raiders, he picked up a rookie quarterback this last draft, and he has just been on target with him. He has not hardly missed a lot of throws. He makes the big throws, and it just fits his style. And you can just see that he's had a resurgence with that team going into this season. So this is going to be a matchup to watch. Buccaneers, Raiders. Again, this would be a fun OMFL Bowl matchup if it was to be. Next up would also be kind of like another cool OMFL Bowl matchup that could be the Seahawks versus the Chiefs. Meek Boy versus a Shocks fan here. Both guys like the offense. Both guys like to stretch the field. Both guys like to take the deep ball shots. And I think this would be one that would be just a back and forth game. Both are okay on defense. I think the Seahawks do get the edge on the defensive side of the ball, but the Chiefs are really solid on defense as well. But this one would be one with both guys having good quarterbacks. A quarterback White for the Seahawks, he is an import, but he's been phenomenal for the Seahawks. And then you also got Mahomes for the Chiefs. Can never go wrong with Mahomes. So this one would be one to watch. Again, I think this one is going to be more of the high scoring type, and look for this one to be like a 30-28 victory for the Seahawks. And then last but not least, the Cardinals and the Saints. Joker, he's been like on fire. But the Saints, Nate, and I know I probably, you hate me pinpointing your team anytime, but Your Saints have played a lot better here the last couple of weeks, so is this maybe possibly a test for you to see if you're going to keep your quarterback that you've got, or if you're going to go ahead and move on from him? And again, this is a joker. It's kind of like the battle of the commissions. NBC versus the OMFL, but both teams are built good. One team is working better for the other owner than the Saints are for you. But I still think this is going to be a tough matchup, and I think it's going to be a good one to watch.
And it should be a ton of fun. I've never played Joker. I've just watched what he's done this whole season, and he's a really good player, so it should be a ton of fun. All right, let's turn it over to Denbrew and some OMFL news. Mr. Denbrew, take us away.
Welcome back for another edition of the OMFL News. We are in season 107 of the OMFL Week 13, soon to be Week 14. I think we got a couple games this evening, and then we are flipping to Week 14. So if you are wanting to get into the playoffs, you better get on it because times are running out. Let's take a quick look at the division standings. In the AFC North, yours truly, my Bengals have dropped 2 in a row and are now locked in a tie with the Ravens at 9-3 apiece. And the Browns sitting there in third place at 5-7, and the Steelers bringing up the rear at 3-9. AFC South, Condors just scored a victory over the Titans earlier today. They set at 7-5 with the Titans right there at 5-7. AFC East, the Buffalo Bills dominating. They are 11-1, having a great season. Bill and his Bills just having a nice season, and the Jets are right there along with the Dolphins vying for some wild card spots. Over in the West, the tightest race in all of the OMFL for the division is the Raiders and Chargers are locked at 7-5. The Chiefs are right there at 6-5. And the Broncos, I think they're still in, they could close out here at 5-7. They could close out and make some noise also at the end. Over in the NFC, not so close. The Lions are dominating the NFC North at 10-2. Their next closest competition has a losing record at 5-6. Same situation in the South. Kevin and the Buccaneers dominating at 12-1. Probably the talk of the OMFL, the Buccaneers, at 12-1. Everybody's liking what they're seeing down there in Tampa Bay. Over in the East, the Cowboys still remain undefeated at 12-0, having a phenomenal season, throwing up 33 points a game, only giving up 17 points. That's a recipe for a bunch of wins, and they are stacking them. Over in the NFC West, things are a little bit tighter. The Niners at 10-2, the Seahawks at 9-3. Those two will not play each other the rest of the season. They've split that series 1-1. And then right there in contention for the wild card are the Cardinals at 7-5. That is a look at your divisions in the OMFL. If you're wanting to get into the playoffs, you better get hot. Back to Nate. Back to Maniac? I don't know. We'll see.
Thank you, Denbrew. Yes, if you're going to make a run for the playoffs, now is the time to do that. And let's talk about that specifically. We're going to talk about races, both playoff races and pick races. Let's start off with the playoffs. Which races will be the best to watch in the NFC and AFC? Both divisional races or wild card. We kind of open it up to both Maniac and I to pick from each of those. The first one I'm going to go with, let's get over here. Let's do some moving around really fast. Come on. Standings. I want to look at the AFC wildcard race. Let's get over to the AFC. The wildcard race is, this isn't going to show wildcard race, is it? Oh, we can look at this right here. We can look at who is in now. Matter of fact, let me pull up Neon Sports. It's probably the best way to look at the races to make sure I don't leave anybody out. But the NFC or the AFC, AFC wildcard race is going to be a classic one. Here we go. AFC wildcard race. We got 6 teams in. So currently it would be, let's see who Madden would say. So currently Madden is saying Buffalo. Let's get rid of my camera really fast so you guys can see this. Buffalo, Bengals, Condors, and Chiefs, they're all winning their division and they're in the wild card positions. They're putting the Chargers, the Jets, and the Ravens. We're going to spit these teams out. I'm going to get it. I can speak English. I know how to do it. I believe in myself. Also in the running are going to be the Las Vegas Raiders at 7-5, the Miami Dolphins at 6-7, and the Denver Broncos at 5-7. So Broncos, Miami, Las Vegas Raiders, the Chargers, the Jets, the Ravens, all battling it out to see who can get those last wild card spots. Technically, Orlando and KC are still sort of in a divisional battle, so you could sort of lump them in there as well. Oh yeah, I forgot to add this. I can put myself over there. Anyway, this is going to be a fun battle to see who can win these wild card spots with some really great games as we come to the end. I love that usually within those last 2 weeks, we get a lot of divisional games. Those divisional games are going to go a long way, not only deciding the division, but also those wild cards. Some of these divisions are locked up. They still have to play some of their division mates, and those division mates are trying to fight and get into the playoffs with one of these wild card spots. They're going to be classic games. We're coming to the very end. My eyes are on this AFC wild card race. What do you think about the AFC wild card race? And then what's the one race that you got your eyes on?
Yeah, that AFC wild card race, man, is pretty intense. I think if you look at the West, the AFC West, could possibly have 3 teams come out of that West going into the playoffs. There's a pretty good discrepancy, I think, in a lot of the divisions that you see. Like you see the Bengals and the Ravens in the North. They're the two horses in that race, and then in the South, it's really kind of the Condors. The Titans are kind of hanging on around range, but not really there. And then you got the Bills and the Jets. Dolphins are there too. So I mean, it could, how some of these games play out. Either the West could be the one that puts in 3 teams in, or it could be 2 teams from there, 2 teams from the East. But this playoff race is really tight, though. I mean, and there's a lot of good football left to be played that could decide. We just went over some of those weak matchups in the next couple of weeks rolling up that could decide some of these coming down the road, and it's going to be fun. It really is going to be fun. A lot of these owners, some of these owners are actually vying for playoff competition for the first time. They haven't been there in a long while. We're talking about the Raiders. He hasn't been there in a long time. He hasn't been in the mix of that. So that's something new for him, and we like to see new blood getting into the playoff races in the OMFL. And then you've got, for me, looking over in the NFC side, though, you've got all your divisions pretty well locked in. I don't think there's any really division leader races except for the West. You've got a three-way horse race there with the 49ers, Seahawks, and Cardinals. It just all depends on what D-Money does. If he's going to take a vacation, takes a little bit of break, if he slacks off a little bit, you just don't know about what D-Money does, but you know what you're going to get with the Seahawks. He's going 90-0, trying to get to the top, and then you've got Joker, who has built that team into this second season there with the Cardinals. He's got them humming. So both these guys are really vying for that top spot, and they're going to have some matchups within that division here the next couple of weeks. It could help decide some of those races. But if you look at the East, it's wrapped up Cowboys. You look at the South, it's wrapped up Buccaneers. You look at the North, it's wrapped up, it's the Lions. And so those last couple of spots to be fought out for the wild card, you're looking at the Seahawks and the Cardinals. Right now, both of those are behind the 49ers. So if that was to end today, those two guys would get in to the wild card spots. And then you have possibly the Dragons sneaking into the playoffs with that 6-6 record. So that's I know Timber's been giving us some NFC hate. That's what I posted in the chat there. But it's a really tight race over here in the NFC, and it could go either way. But I just think that it's pretty amazing how things can change within one season. We're seeing a lot of teams that have not been there in the thick of things, and now we're seeing them actually competing for a spot to get into the playoffs. But yeah, that's my take on it so far.
You talked about my next one that I want to hit on, and that's the NFC West. The 49ers at 10-2, Seahawks 9-3, Cardinals 8-5. The Cardinals have scored more points than the 49ers, 395 to 391. 49ers have the best defense of the group at 202, but the Seahawks are right there at 219. Cardinals 362. That's a lot that they've given up. A 7-game winning streak for the 49ers, a 1-game losing streak for the Seahawks, a 1-game winning streak for the Cardinals. All those guys are pushing to the very end here. To imagine the day where we get 3 NFC East or NFC West teams into the playoffs with division and 2 wild cards would be absolutely crazy. And I am going to get a little taste of the Cardinals myself. I think I may even have to play the Seahawks. I don't remember. I have to go look. These teams are not teams that you want to face. You don't want to see these guys on your schedule. You don't want to have to face them. You don't want to have to play them. None of that stuff is going to be fun. But these might be the teams that win. And I think this race is going to go a long way. We've seen some of these classic matchups between Seahawks and 49ers right here towards the end. I think you said it was week 16 or whatever it may have been. We're going to see some big-time games. And I think for me, even though it's been a tough season for you, for me, for a couple other teams who thought they would be better than what their season is, we get to now play spoiler. And sometimes that can be just as much fun to get into a game, play spoiler, get a victory that nobody else thought you could get. That could be a ton of fun. And I think we're going to see some big time upsets in these last few weeks. And this is going to be a divisional race that will be a ton of fun. Any other playoff races that you got your eyes on?
Yeah, I mean, again, just to talk about the West, and I don't want to just hound it, but you see these 3 owners, they're all very competitive. If you've listened to any of them in the chat or on their streams, the Seahawks Meek Boy, I know I'm giving you some love and kind of ribbing you a little bit at he's like, last season when he beat D Money, he's like, put some respect on my name, he was excited, one thing that follows this that sometimes can be wanted and also can be not wanted is you start to get a target on your back. And in the OMFL, when you start getting a target on your back, watch out, because people start hunting you and they start coming for you. So I do want to point out and give a little love to maybe this last spot that could be up for grab. You got the Panthers at 5-7 now with Bird, and then you've got the Dragons at 6-6. So there could be a potential for that last spot to be fought for between these two teams. And I'm sad to say I didn't research far enough into this one to see what their schedules are remaining for this season, but that could be a potential big matchup. I know the Dragons just won a big matchup against the Jaguars. We watched that one. That was kind of a down the wire, a lot of points scored. And we also seen Bird actually lose a real close game to the Buccaneers. So if something can happen here and he can get something moving there with the Panthers, get a win. And then I just have to say too, the Commanders could possibly be a backdoor to the back door, possibly in the playoffs. But I just don't see it within that division, because I think he's still got to play the Cowboys and a couple other teams that I just don't think it's gonna come to his favor. But again, though, that last spot in the NFC could be an interesting a watch as we watch the rest of this season unfold to who gets that very last spot for the playoffs in the NFC side.
The Commanders, guys, thanks for hanging out with us. What's up, Trey? What's up, Denver? Make sure to hit the like button. Helps me out a ton, pushes our content out there, shows a little love and appreciation. The Commanders have the Lions, Giants, Panthers, and Steelers, so that Panthers game could go a long way. Listen to the Dragons, though. They've got Cowboys, Titans, Packers, Vikings, Bucks. So two major teams there. And then the Panthers also have a doable road. They've got a long way to overcome here. But they have Broncos, Rams, Ravens, Commanders, Falcons. Rams, Commanders, Falcons, any of those games, like those are going to be really, really tough games. We know what Nipples can do with the Ravens if he's around. Those could all be tough games. So you may be onto something there with the Commanders. Let's talk about picks really quick. You and I set this up. We want to talk about races in the playoffs, but we also want to talk about races to top picks because, man, people want those top picks. And I think most of us don't want to lose. And so we can't lose games on purpose, and we also need the top picks. So I wanted to talk about a couple of teams. I've picked two. I want to hear you pick two. I'm going with the New England Patriots. I think they are in need of some top picks. They are in need of losing some games here as he continues to rebuild that roster. We've seen him this past offseason go all in on the veterans, and man, it didn't work out. He went through a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-game losing streak before getting on a 2-game winning streak, including winning against the Condors, I think, last night. He's got Dolphins, Jets, Rams, Bills. Talk about a tough schedule to end your seasons. Dolphins, Jets, Rams, Bills. That is not going to be easy to get through. I think he benefits the most from losing. He needs to get an influx of talent. I personally think he needs to go with a quarterback. Maybe quarterback isn't his issue. He needs some more playmakers on both sides of the ball. But for Loss to get that team back on track the way I know he wants to, losing games and getting a higher draft pick is only going to benefit him. It's going to be interesting to see him this offseason. Does he continue to go veterans? Let me bring in the old guys. Does he move the picks for more picks? Like, how does he go about rebuilding this team? I think the Patriots could be a team that's all in. My second team is going to be the New York Giants and Mr. Colin. I felt like Colin this past offseason went all in on the tank mode. He didn't even have a quarterback rolling into week number 1. And somehow he finds himself like winning a couple of games here and there. Does he go after a quarterback? Is he going to be going in on Prescott again? I have no clue. I do know he had a great draft last season, and he can follow that up with another solid draft. He is on a 4-game losing streak. He finishes the season Browns, Commanders, Cowboys, and Eagles. A couple of those could be winnable. A couple of those could be blowouts. We'll see how this one comes together for him. I'm very interested, though, to see what does Colin do. And if he somehow goes in on a rookie quarterback and gets more playmakers on the outside of that offense or for the outside, like he could become very dangerous next season with these New York Giants. Those are the two teams I think can benefit the most from losing games and getting a higher draft pick. Who are the teams that you think could be in a race for those top draft picks?
Well, I'm looking at the Eagles. For one, they're in real life. They've spent a lot of money. They've got a lot of their team is kind of mixed up with youth, but they also do have a lot of vets. So I think like some of those guys that retired and got away from Twinkie here kind of hurt his team because he's like 2-10. He was really competitive last season, and then you see these kind of dropped off a lot this season. So I think it would be good for him, to go ahead and get that high draft pick, go ahead and load up on some other guys that he needs. So I'm kind of giving like a 1A, 1B. The Patriots are the other one. You already spoke about them. The Giants would be another one, but I also think that the Steelers, he's very, very competitive. He's got Ritter, his quarterback. you see him though. He's at 3-9. His team, and that was one of the reasons why I when I traded, when we got to this Madden, there's a lot of older guys especially on the defensive line side of the ball, and I think those guys have gotten old, gotten slow, and it has affected his gameplay. So I could see that the Steelers could. I think is my other two team that could benefit from not winning anymore and keeping their record as it is. I have to say one thing. Colin and I played last night, and we were kind of both jokingly like, it would benefit us not to win this game, but we're playing and we're competitive, and so we played. I think it was like 40-35 game, and at the end of the game, I was like, hey, bro, we suck at losing. So.
Just ended a tie.
Game.
You should have both agreed to kick a field goal and then score no more points.
Yeah, but it's all part of the fun and the guys that are sitting down here in the top 5, top 10 picks. It's a time now to start reflecting on your team and start to look forward to the draft, because the season is pretty much kind of gone, and so. I'm not saying tank, but definitely start playing some of your young guys, see who you're going to keep around, who's going to stay, and now's the evaluation part of your team. See what's going on.
Yep, it'll be fun to see who gets some of those top picks and what guys do, because guys are already getting calls about some of those top picks, and I always hope that there are top picks hold on to those draft picks if they've earned them, so to speak, for lack of a better term, because I want to see those teams that had tough season go out, draft the possible rookies of the year, draft impact players, and I hate seeing them deal those picks away for either veterans or guys that are on the downside of their career. All right, let's go to Mr. Denbrew for OMFL News number 2, and when we come back, Maniac, we're going to open up the mailbag. It looked like we have a handful of questions, so we're going to get in there and open that up. Mr. Denbrew.
Welcome back. Segment number 2, OMFL News. I am Denbrew. First segment, we covered some division races, talking about playoffs. We're going to continue to talk about playoffs. We're going to do it with a little bit of a twist. So I was taking a look at some of the teams that are either leading their division or right there in the wild card that looks like they're going to make the playoffs. And surprisingly, maybe not so surprisingly, I should say, turnover differential is the leading indicator that you're going to be into the playoffs. Look at the top 10 teams and plus turnover margin. They're all playoff teams. Every single one of them. The Ravens lead the league in a plus 24 turnover margin. The Cowboys and Jets right there behind them. All playoff contenders. Seahawks right there. That's a playoff team. Buccaneers, they've got one loss on the year. The 49ers, I think they have 2 losses on the year. So, I mean, you got nothing but playoff teams at the top in turnover differential. And when you look at the worst 10 teams in turnover differential, they're not making the playoffs, at least at this point. And it looks pretty bleak for all of those teams to make the playoffs. So if you want to make the playoffs in the OMFL, I got the formula. You get a bunch of turnovers from your defense, and then when you have it on offense, you just don't give it up. That's it. It's simple. Why do I say that? Because I looked at some offensive statistics, and some of these teams have high offensive numbers. They still aren't getting in the playoffs. Turnovers is the key. And one thing I'll throw out at you right now, when I was looking at the turnover differential, was the New York Jets. They've turned it over 12 times on the year. And they turned it over 6 times in those first 2 games of the season where they started 0-2. Since then, they've only turned it over 6 more times. What a turnaround. Kobe wasn't looking like a playoff team going 0-2 out of the gates. He flipped the switch, quit turning the ball over, and his defense kept giving it back to him. Now he's a playoff team. Back to Nate, back to Maniac. Segment 2's a wrap, and that's all I got for you guys. Peace.
There we have it, Mr. Denbrew. Thank you so much for the OMFL News. Sorry that last one was echoey. Again, new computer, having to reset things up, and I think I just realized why this chat is not working the way it's supposed to be working. And I just figured it out. I'm pretty sure I just figured it out. So it is what it is. So hopefully this will be what it is. So we'll see. We'll mess with that a little bit later. Oh yeah, there it goes. It's fixed. The things that drive me insane sometimes, Mr. Maniac. Still making them disappear. It's not supposed to make those messages disappear at all. So we'll figure out why that's doing it. Okay, let's open up the OMFL mailbag really quick. And there's a ton of them in here. You guys got to remember, one question per line. Cincyberg and Nipples writing his 800 long, just freaking long message all in one. Anyway, let's go, Mr. Roger. He says, finding a QB that fits one's play style is paramount. The past draft had quarterbacks selected in round 1. Oh, I think he's asking how many quarterbacks do we think will be taken in round 1 of this next draft? I think that's an interesting question. I want you to put a number on it. I would say I think the longer we get into drafts or Maddens or cycle, more seasons, the less quarterbacks that we see drafted as we go. How many quarterbacks do you think we're going to see?
I'm trying, like, off the top of my head right now, think of what teams that could benefit from having a quarterback. You got Colin. We don't know what he's going to do, so they could probably benefit from drafting a quarterback. Another team would probably be the Rams because they still have Goff on their roster, or at least that's the one that he's rolling with to play with right now that I saw in his stream the other day. So they could be another one that could possibly benefit from getting that quarterback. It all depends. Sometimes you don't know what Priest's going to do. You don't know what some of these guys are going to do. But I'm going to say we're going to at least see 2 quarterbacks in the first round, possibly 3. It depends on the thinking, but I'm going to go with 2, and with a potential of a playmaking quarterback slipping through and possibly getting selected in like the 3rd round or something like that. So,
and I think 3 is my number as well. I do think we might see a couple of teams try to get out of some contracts, especially quarterback contracts, move up in some drafts, and it would not surprise me at all if we see 3 of those come through. I think it could be really, really interesting. So 3 is my number. I think 3 is going to be the number that we see. Thanks for the question, Mr. Raj, who says, I thought, Raj, you gave yours. Raj, how many do you think? I want to see a number from you, Raj. Trey says, who is a player that you've watched or played against who may not have the fancy attributes or high overall that you find to be a dominant player in the league? That's really good. So who's like a Madden player that you've either played with or played against? Oh, I'm sorry. That you've watched or played against that you feel like plays beyond their ratings? I'm going to have to chew on that one for a second. Anybody come to the top of your mind?
Well, he's on my team. Jalen Tolbert, the wide receiver that I picked up from the Cowboys. He's only like a 77 overall, normal dev, but he seems to get a lot of yards. He's pretty sure-handed. He's tied for the top of my team right now with 54 catches, 921 yards, almost 17 or a little over 17 yards, and averaging about 70 yards a game with 7 touchdowns. Since picked him up from Dwayne when I got him, he was like a 73 overall. He has played well above his overall, so that's kind of my quick easy out of it because that's the one that comes to my mind because I've experienced it. So
I don't know his overall, and so I may be talking out of turn here, but the Dallas wide receiver / punt returner / kicker is great. I feel like he is just a superb player. I think Trey has his quarterback that plays really, really well, plays a little bit beyond maybe his ratings you would think that he played. I think the Browns' backup quarterback that he built last year played excellent beyond his ratings, and is somebody I'd love to bring in. I think there's a lot of really good players. That's a great question, and probably one that needed way more time than what I was able to give it, but it's a really good question. There's some really good players. In the chat, I'd love to hear anybody that you think should be on that list and should make that list. Mr. Shocks fan, besides quarterback, what's the most important position to have on your team in the OMFL? Another really good question. What do you think the most important team this Madden cycle? Because I do think it could change Madden cycles depending on which one. But for this Madden cycle, what's the second most important position outside of quarterback?
It's kind of a toss-up for me. It would be either like defensive tackles to help stop the run, because the run has been pretty predominant this Madden. But I kind of lean towards the cornerback. If you have a really good defensive backfield that can handle offensive weapons, then you are better off. That actually played to my favor in the first season. Now this season I've still got pretty decent cornerbacks, but I've been torched a little bit, and then I have to look at my defensive line. So I think both of those kind of go hand in hand. But I think if you really get down to it, like your interior defensive line is probably the more important, and maybe defensive line across the board. But I do think if you got a couple of big defensive tackles that can get off blocks quick, get in the backfield, kind of cause some havoc, I think that plays to your favor.
Yeah, I would have to probably go wide receiver. I just feel like if you have a dynamic playmaking receiver, which could be a receiving tight end, I'd also put them in there. It wreaks havoc. I think I sort of sit with some of that firsthand knowledge as well as you, of like watching Tampa Bay and what they've done with their quarterback receiver combos. It's just nuts. I mean, he's very good. And if you have a receiver that can make plays the way some of these receivers can make plays, it can just wreak havoc on a defense, and you're not sure. I think receiver could be one of those top positions. Cincyberg, I gave you both a check and a thumbs up because you put two questions in one statement. I need those on separate lines. Earlier in the year, I asked about Vikings over under 6.5 wins. You both said over. I think currently that was Trey and I. He's currently 4-9 with Cardinals, 49ers, Dragons, Titans. Number one, do you think he'll still make it? Number two, what are some thoughts? What are some tough things for new owners in the OMFL our team switching to adjust to? So 6.5, Trey and I said we thought that he could make 6.5. He's lost a couple of games I thought that he could actually win. He's sitting at 4-9, so he's going to need 3 more of those wins with still Cardinals, 49ers, Dragons, and Titans. I say he doesn't make it. He's going to get close, but Cardinals, 49ers, I think he loses those. I think somehow he upsets the Dragons. Somehow he upsets the Titans, and he finishes right at 6 wins, but the number was 6.5, which is why Cincyberg does our lines, because if he was Vegas, he would have won that one.
Yeah, I'm going to go with you on that, too, as well. I don't think he's going to make it. I probably would have gave him the nod too at the first of the season. So because I know Bill, I've played against Bill in the Deuce and other places, and he's a great owner. So he's just filling out this team. He's got to get a season or two underneath his belt, figure out what he wants to do with his team. But that's that would have been a good bet to win for money for Cincyberg there, because. It's proven that he was right on that one.
And his second one, what are some tough things for new owners in the OMFL or teams switching to adjust to? And I think it is the style of play versus how your team is built to play versus how you're used to playing. Like trying to find the cohesion between those three areas. It brings the teams who win the most games here, and that sometimes takes some getting used to. What about you?
Yeah, I think that once you switch, you can go from one team that's built completely for a rushing attack, great in the red zone, and then you can pick up a team that's got some shiny new players, some toys, but then all of a sudden you find out that they don't work as good for my system, my style, as what my former team did. So it can take an adjustment, and I think whenever switching teams and stuff, I think the guys that take a little bit more care into figuring out like what team they're going to switch to if a team is open, or if they really know like what they need to be successful. So when a team opens up and you see like a big hurt, or like a bird when they move, which bird moved to his favorite team, so I probably shouldn't even say him, but like Big Hurt, or maybe even like a Cincy bird. Whenever they move, they've already scoped out that team. They know how they like to play, and they're looking for certain players in certain positions that play a certain style and are built a certain way, and so those guys, they seem to adjust better than a lot of guys that just switch from one team to the other because they just want to get out of Dodge, or want a different environment or different team color or whatever. So I think that again makes things tough for those owners, and then they start to find out, I got to change this to get this because I had this over there and I don't have this here, and so all that plays into factor, I think.
The next one coming from you. He said, why are the Steelers so bad? I almost was like, is this a real question? Because you did have a GIF after. But I think we could ask the question, is he tanking? Like, I think it ultimately comes down to quarterback play. I think that just was, it just was different. And he played so much better last season with him. And it feels like it's taken a step back this season. And then some aging defensive players. I don't believe he's tanking. I also equally believe he's not fully engaged. And I seen him in chat a while ago. I think it's maybe just a combination of like not fully engaged. What do I know exactly why? I just believe it's a combination of a couple of different things. But you were going to take over that team, traded to him. What do you think is the kind of the issue when it comes to the Steelers?
Again, what I was looking at, one was the quarterback, which when we switched, since he had his eye on Ritter, adamant that he wanted to try to get Ritter from me if all possible, and I was like, I'm not connected to him, so I'd be willing to trade him, if I get over to this team because I want this guy, but one of the factors was I was looking at, they got TJ Watt, but that defensive line otherwise was getting old. Their linebackers were pretty old. Now they did have a very young defensive backfield, so that was intriguing. They did have a stud at running back, and also young guys at the wide receiver, so that was also comparable. But ultimately, I think it is partly too because one, the game has changed a little bit, and not saying the sliders. I think the game updates have caused the game to play just a little bit different than it did the last season, and that has nothing to do with the sliders. It's just that them tweaking on their end things that play differently. I've noticed like some of the routes that guys were throwing last season, they're not as open now, and nothing's really changed with sliders and those things. So I think it's just sometimes owners find success, and I'm preaching to myself, I think, as much as anybody, because I have been revamping since I've been in this slump. I've been revamping my playbook because I'm like, a lot of these plays just they just don't work anymore, and I've never actually loaded my playbook up with just plays that work, but what I'm saying, like some plays just will not work. Like you just can't run them because they just will not work ever. And and I've had some of those, so I think it could be a combination of all those things. And and once you kind of get to the certain part of the season like we are right now, it's like, am I really going to really try to push to win some of these games? Am I tanking? No, but am I gonna, if I fall down 14-0, am I really gonna just like go pedal to the metal, try to get back in this game, or if I'm just gonna lick my wounds and get ready for the next one? So some of those things I think plays into factor.
He's 26th in offensive points, 27th in defensive points, 28th in offensive yards, 24th in defensive yards, 26th in passing yards offense, 24th in passing yards defense, 27th in rushing yards offense, 17th in rushing yards defense. That's why he's not winning. He just isn't playing normal Cincyberg football. And it's easy to blame it on the quarterback who has not had a great year, but his running backs, he doesn't have a running back even close to 1,000 yards yet. And his offensive line has given up 30 sacks. It's just, there's a lot of things. And the engagement is a factor that comes into this. So I think there are a lot of things. You also ask, who do you think is the best performing quarterback currently on a bad team? I thought that was a really interesting conversation piece to have here. And then I realized we're already over an hour. I think there are a couple of teams that we could talk about. Parker Colt has to be in the conversation. You're not having the season that you wanted to, but this guy's got 3,309 yards, 21 touchdowns, 17 interceptions, and given up 27 sacks. That's just crazy numbers. The Browns, I wouldn't say are having a bad season, but his rookie is way up there. 3,536 yards, 28 touchdowns, 29 interceptions. That sucks. 26 sacks. Who's another quarterback that maybe isn't having the greatest season? I think Trevor Lawrence will be one of the top turnaround candidates next year, but he's having a pretty decent season. Sam Howell's having a pretty decent season. The interception numbers are all pretty high on all these quarterbacks, and that's probably why their teams are not, upper echelon of winning teams here. But I think all teams that you have to consider teams with really good quarterbacks who are in the top 10, top 5, top 7 quarterbacks when it comes. Was there anybody in mind outside of your quarterback that brought forth this question?
The one that I was thinking of was actually I know the Texans quarterback CJ Stroud. I know Roger is always always down, but he's actually had a decent season. I mean, he's got 2,600 yards, 18 touchdowns. I know he's got 20 interceptions, but he's played pretty good. I know he's on he's kind of on a young team, bad team, but he's actually done really good, I thought, for his situation. And Zach Wilson for the Jets, he's by no means like any kind of spectacular quarterback, but man, he has played fantastic. He's 25 and he's normal dev. He's only 82 overall, but he's been I know he struggled with him at first, but he's 27 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. So I know that's not like he's not on a bad team, but he's just been balling out. But I think the other one that you have to look at that's on a bad team, that the owner switch, we're talking about Sam Howell and the Commanders. He's almost got 3,000 yards passing, attempted over 300 passes, but he's 24 touchdowns, 22 interceptions. And I know Bird left him for the Panthers, but that's, on a bad team. They had a struggling team, but 24 touchdowns is nothing to shake a finger at either.
Let's see. What do we have here? We've got Mr. Nipples. He says, only this question can be asked by Nipples. Good afternoon. As the youngest rookie in history to score 20 rushing touchdowns and the first player to ask a question. I extend my apologies for any negative influence during my party in New York with our coach. Now that I have that off my chest to my question, I have no clue what any of that statement means. But I would say Nipples is one of the handful of owners here that you should not watch their streams and listen to them because they're not always the kindest humans in the planet. Nipples says some weird stuff on his. Like there's a lot of weird things going on when I'm listening into theirs. There's a lot going on over there. His question, I've observed defensive line users only during critical downs. Should we consider implementing restrictions on when to use the defensive line user? Whew, talk about a can of worms he's opening up here. What kind of feelings do you have about some restrictions on defensive line use?
The situational guys sometimes don't bother me as bad as the ones that like use it like 90% of the game, because like 90% of the game they can pretty much dominate. So the situational guys, sometimes you just got to anticipate when they're doing it, sometimes when they're going to do it, and try to play around that. But the guys that do it like 90% of the game, it's tough to get a lot of things going. But I mean, that's just the Madden. But it does bring up interesting conversation. But man, that you think an all Madden talk is bad? Oof.
Yeah, I hate it. I've always hated it. I think it's cheap. It plays unrealistic than the other parts of the game. I also don't fight that fight anymore. It's just not worth my energy. To me, it is a small give to get the other things that I feel like are more important. So yeah, it is what it is. I hate it. It specifically drives me insane when you just see it on third downs or some big down and distance, playing defensive tackle on the goal line and one. It's like, if you want to play it every down, cool, play it every down. Now I can play around and I can counteract that. This, just using it on cheap downs, it just feels cheap, and I just wish people I couldn't do it all the time. Like sometimes you got to fight fire with fire. It's like, I've been getting this done every third down. I'm coming at him this third down, and next third down I move back. But like every time somebody needs a big play, they go do it. It's yucky. If we did any restrictions, the one I'd like to put would be, if you blitz, you can't play defensive line. I think that's where it gets even yuckier, is like guys send all out blitzes and then go play the defensive line. It's just like, ugh, gross. We could be better than that. Anyway, Additionally, if we transition to all Madden, the absence of the green area indicator may pose challenges for executing my runs. Given the ability to make immediate pre-snap adjustments such as hot routes, without visualizing play art after plays, you have a strategy in mind to address this possible issue. It's not an issue. The green and red marks are for people who don't know how to play this game. It's literally the easiest thing. Count from the center to whatever side you're running on. If it's outnumbered, it's going to be red. If you got better numbers, it's going to be green. That's all it does. If someone's lined up over the center, that voids out. Count the rest of the players. If they're not lined up over the center, count all the players to the right or the left, depending on which side. That determines what's green or red. You don't need play art for that. Also, the visualizing play art after plays, I think we're better players than in need of, he just ran zone, which tells you nothing. Like, when people are blitzing you a lot, you can see the blitz. When people are playing zone a lot, you can see the zone a lot. I've now given you all the closed bunch formations that you can eat at the buffet, and so you can tell when somebody's in zone. It's just like, I just don't see any issues with going all Madden. We now ask both owners to stream. So if it's a rules violation, we should have 2 streams out there for most of these games. I'm not seeing the issues at all. And I think that's a lazy question, in my opinion. I think you're a better player. And Nibbles, you specifically know you're a better player than needing the green and red marks to be able to tell which side to run the ball on. That's the goofiest thing I've ever heard.
I'm sorry. I had to mute my mic because I lost it when you started reading about the green area indicator. I was like, what? Oh man.
He's way better of a player than need the green and red to tell him if he should run it or not.
We're talking about the guy on defense that can shut down one side of the field with his
Yeah.
cornerback play, and he needs a
He could
green
win
and red
14 games with his eyes closed. Stay out of the sex boats. Like, whatever. Any thoughts about All Madden? Because you have moved the Deuce to All Madden and have been playing it for several weeks.
All Madden has been playing quite well. We've made minimal adjustments to sliders. There has been a few that's just been against it, and we had one guy that was with the OMFL a long time, Smash. He just left the community because he finally decided that or finally figured out that we don't allow you to flip the run play for one, and I'm all like, where have you been? But
For the second time this Madden, should we point out too? Also, why he's not allowed in the OMFL, because he did the same to me, just deuced. So at some point, you got to own this is who you are as a person, not us anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And then he didn't like the All Madden switch and stuff, but from playing between because the NBC also play over there, I've been trying to help those guys also to rebuild their league because they went through a tough time, kind of like the Deuce, and a lot of those guys play over in the Deuce as well. So, but they play on All Madden as well, and All Madden has played well for them, and they were running similar sliders to the Deuce along with that. So that's kind of what we kind of went with that, and besides just very minimal backlash about All Madden, most of it has been very positive. There's been a couple of things that arose that somebody thought they were taking advantage of the no play art showing, but when you went back and looked at their video, the stream, it showed a totally different deal as well. So we've really not had any problems with it, and the games have played a lot more. I want to say realistic, but the games have been more competitive, and so it's been nice. It's been fun for the ones that I've played, and I'm by no stream of the stretch an All Madden advocate because I've always been against it. But there's just something about this Madden that seems to be like it's kind of that's the way the game was built, and it kind of just fits. I've seen wide receivers go for since we're no switch. I've seen wide receivers go for more balls than when they're thrown deep than a lot of times where they just like keep running and keep looking the wrong way. They'll actually turn around and try to make a jump catch for it and stuff. Whereas the other it don't happen, And there's gonna be a give and take on any slider, any kind of setting adjustment that you make. There's going to be something that's going to happen. One thing is if you play the CPU quarterbacks are just insane on All Madden, but in the place like the OMFL, we shouldn't be having those type of situations where you're playing the CPU a lot. And maybe if it's something where a guy is taking off half the season and think he's going to get free wins, maybe that won't be allowed or something. That's for a different time, different place. But for the head-to-head games versus users, it seems like it has just been on point so far. So.
Yeah, I too was not an All Madden guy, always been an All Pro guy. I truly feel they have dumbed down every level of this game this year more than they ever have. And All Madden just feels like where we should go. But again, I ain't fighting that fight. The board will decide that move if that's what we end up doing. Mr. Kevin, 2 questions, and we got to land this plane. A long show today. With the season almost over, who would be your offensive and defensive rookies of the year? I had looked this one up a little bit, and I have to admit I'm surprised by the lack of defensive players that have made an impact this season. But on the offensive side, I think there are a lot of really good players. The Browns quarterback, Drastic. I don't have some Russian name, I guess. I don't know how to say this. He's had a good season. 28 touchdowns, 29 interceptions, but 3,536 passing yards. That guy has been a monster. I almost said Miles Sanders, but Zach Lake, that's who I was trying to look for the Baltimore Ravens, who asked the questions a while ago. 1,285 yards and 22 touchdowns already this season. We've seen several other kind of receivers and tight ends have really impactful games, but on the defensive side of things, I've been surprised at just kind of the lack of playmakers that we've seen over there. I'm trying to pull up a couple of quick numbers here. Tackling wise, Greg Mathis for the Seattle Seahawks is going to be up there. Jalen Belton for the Giants is going to be up there, but that's about it. If we looked at sack leaders, it's going to be, I think your number one rookie is going to be Chuck Haywood of the Arizona Cardinals. He's got 7 on the season, and that's really it in the top 25. And then interception leaders. Hit the wrong button. Go back. Interception leaders. As my wife asked, are you almost done? Raheem Bayless of the New York Jets, he's got 5 on the season. So less impactful players on the defensive side, more impactful players offensively. But overall, not like this like massive influx of top tier talent who are just blowing up the league. Anybody come to mind for you?
I already spoke about him once. Austin Henry, the quarterback for the Cardinals from Texas, he's already got closing in on 3,300 yards, 24 touchdowns. He does have 19 picks, but he's completing like 62% of his passes, and he's averaging about 253 yards a game, and only been sacked 11 times. So that would be one. And then kind of sticking with the Cardinals. I know I'm like drinking the Cardinal Kool-Aid right now, but Dwayne Little, like I don't know this guy's name. I just see the picture and I think immediately of Dwayne, because I think he had a picture on Discord that had a hairstyle kind of similar to that. So I just always like think of Dwayne, but it's Dwayne Little. He's got 64 catches, 1,027 yards, 8 touchdowns. So he's been really a vital part of that Cardinals team. And then on the defense, if I can quickly find him, I know what team he's playing for, but Brandon Bryson, he's got 88 tackles, and he's got 2 interceptions, 2 tackles for loss, but he's also got 3 deflections, and 1 touchdown. So I think that he's been, if you could say, an impact player. He's strong safety from Ohio State, Brandon Bryson. So, but he's played pretty well for the Denver Broncos team on defense.
All right, last question, and then I got to get out of here before the wife comes and hits me with a pan or something. With the Ravens, also from Kevin, with the Ravens being pretty dominant this season, could we see the Ravens representing the AFC in the OMFL Bowl? We have seen him do that before, and I think he is not out of the question. I would not put my mortgage down that he will do it, but I would say it is a very good possibility. He has just as much of an opportunity as any of those other teams. We've seen teams like Denver when he went on his great run. I think he was an 8-8, 8-9, 9-8, something like that. That very first season, went on a run through the playoffs, got to OMFL Bowl, which was his first of, I think, 3 OMFL Bowls back to back to back. So we can see the Ravens do that. I don't know if he will, but I think he definitely has the ability to.
Yeah, I mean, he's anytime Nipple, if he gets locked in and is able to play his games and really get into it, I mean, he could be a top 5 player in this league all the time, I think. But it's just, is he going to be on a cruise beforehand during the playoffs? You know, that's the only thing that you don't know. But I don't think he will be, but it could be. He's been pretty dominant, but a lot of those games, his CPU has played really well too. A lot of those games that his running back actually got like 5 touchdowns in one game, I think was an actual CPU game that was played against somebody. So he's just he's got a good team. He's got a dominant team. But there's a little asterisk beside the name, the Ravens, and it just all depends on Nipple. If he wants to go all in for it, I think he could be there. But that's just entirely up to him, though.
Always depends on the Nipple. All right, give us some closing thoughts, and then I got to get out of here. I've got a couple of closing things as well. Give me one final thought.
Really looking forward to seeing how the playoffs out. Again, like I said earlier, excited to see a lot of new faces vibing for playoff spots in the OMFL. That's what keeps things, I think, alive, where you have the same teams over and over and over every season. It gets mundane. Guys get like, I ain't got a shot, so I'm just not even going to try. But to see these other guys getting a chance to make a run, that's exciting, and I look forward to it, and I look forward also to having my top 10 draft pick going into next season too. So
me too. I only have the first round, but I'll take it. It's better than nothing, and it's the one that matters, I think, the most. Thank you for all the hot seat offers. I think we've had Big Hurt offer, maybe Dimbrew. I know Luca has offered. There's been a handful of people that have offered, and we're going to do that. I just have been busy so I was sick for 2 months. I finally am not coughing anymore. And then for the last 2 weeks, going on 3 weeks, my entire family has been sick, including a 2-year-old baby girl who has caused a lot of stress and worry for us as we try to get her back on her feet. So I have just been between that and the new computer. There's a lot going on. I promise to arrange that. Hopefully for next week, we'll have a hot seat on. I'll bring one of you guys on. And then over the Christmas break, I am going to redesign my stream, and we'll hopefully be able to have Maniac on video and bring other guests on video. You can see I'm still working out some kinks here, but then I plan on being able to move some things around and redesign everything the way that I'm envisioning them with the new setup. So thanks for being patient. I was working on a bug today that I have not figured out, and I'm still working out, but a lot of things coming, including during the Christmas break, I will do Neon Sports videos. I've been trying to do those for 2 months. I will do Neon Sports videos and show you guys, if you don't know, if you haven't dug, how you can properly use Neon Sports to the best of its ability and get the most out of it. So, Maniac, thank you for being patient. Guys, all of you, thank you for being patient. I had to move from yesterday because of the grandbaby. I had to go out and help her. We almost had to rush her to the emergency room. Thankfully, she's fine. She's doing a little bit better. Still not quite there, but I needed to deal with that yesterday. And then I was late today because of work. It just happened. So thanks, everybody, for being patient. Thank you, Maniac, for just sitting around and waiting on your hands for me to have time. So I appreciate you making time. Guys, have a great rest of your week. I love you. Take care of those around you. Take care of yourself. We'll see you on the next one. Love ya. Peace.
Later.